very quickly. Now I'd like to introduce Alexandre Archambault, who is an engineer at Teeds.tv, but is much better known for his contributions to Shapeless and many other things. And he's here to talk to us about coursier and dependency management. So please welcome Alexandre.
Can you hear me? I'm going to talk about Coursier, which is a small library to deal with Ivy and Maven dependencies. It's entirely rewritten from scratch, it aims at somehow breaking the chains of Ivy or Ether. A few words about me. So my name is Alexandre Archambault. I'm doing Scala since 2013, and I've been contributing to Shapeless for a year and a half, among other things. So I'm a software engineer at a company called Teeds.tv, which does native video advertising. That is, video ads inside news magazine articles. They have contracts with lots of publishers worldwide and reach maybe 100 million users a day and growing. Their backend are entirely written in Scala, so that mobilizes maybe half of their 70 plus developers. And they do machine learning, lots of processing with Spark, and we're in the midst of switching to Mesos, etc. A few months ago, I needed dependency management to do two things. The first one was to distribute an application. That is, I had an application that consisted in a few Maven dependencies, and I just wanted to throw them in the class path and launch that. That was how it worked. And also, I wanted to allow users of this application to add dependencies on the fly, a bit like you do in Ammonite, when you do load.iv something. I wanted to do that in my app. And at first, I thought I would use two things to do that. The first one was something called conscript, which is supposed to do the first thing. That is, it pulls a few dependencies, it puts them in the class path, and it launches that. And then to fetch dependencies on the fly when the application was running, I wanted to use SBT, because SBT is supposed to do that. That is, it can fetch a few dependencies. And actually, I've been quite disappointed by these two things. The first conscript has actually a dependency handling, which is a degraded version of the one you have in SBT. That is, it fails, for example, to fetch things from Spark, which was a problem for me. SBT as a library is also quite hard to use. It's not really made for that, and it's hard to do fancy things with it. Plus, with these things, you don't have parallel downloads. You can't display progress bars for what's going on because you're downloading quite a few dependencies. At the end, it turns out it turns out dependency resolution, when you think about it, is not that big a deal, and it's not worth going hoops and loops with Java legacy libraries to do that. I think Scala really should have its own library to do that. So I tried to do that. So that's why I wrote a library called Coursier. So it's very, very core. Consists in a few hundred lines of code. They were written a bit in anger when I faced the problem before. It was in 2015, and so I wrote stuff around that at the same time, and a few significant things at the end of 2015 with SBT plugin, with support for Ivy repositories, and I think now it quite works. So its API consists in a few case classes and entities, along with some I/O wrapped in monads. And I can show you how it mainly has three. It can be used through three ways. The first one is through its API. The other is via its SBT plugin, and the last one is via the command line. and I can show you how it works from the command line. So now if you have I don't know, let's say evil or twisted dependencies that we could check, or else I have a few ones, but Spark, yeah, or even SQL even, if you want. Okay. Let's go. So here I have a coursier launcher. Okay, yeah. So here I have a coursier launcher, which you can download quite easily. You just have to look at the README of coursier. So here, yeah. So I have it. So let's try to fetch a few dependencies. So Spark is, so that's its organization, the name SQL, say, and let's pick the last version. So here I think I already have everything in cache, so it should go, yeah. So here what we have is the full class path of these dependencies, the dependency and all its transitive dependencies. As is, that doesn't mean it works. I mean, but it actually does, because I'm doing things with Spark, and I can confirm that it's fine. But some other thing I can show you is I can launch an application out of a few dependencies, and I mean, if there's something's wrong, the application won't work. So a famous one I can launch is Ammonite, for example. So I'll just do coursier launch Ammonite. So the Ammonite dependency is this. So it's Ammonite repo. And we'll pick the last version too. So here everything is in cache, so the resolution goes quite fast. And yes, it's here. So I can also show you when the cache is empty, so I'm going to sandbox it. So I can do that with the environment. I'll just use a directory here. Let me check. Yeah. So here I'm sandboxing coursier with the environment. That can be done also for the SBT plugin. So here it downloads everything. That was the metadata, and it's déjà. Yeah, Scala compiler is often the bottleneck. Yeah, here it is. I can do so yeah, just to show you that it works. So here it's Ivy again because it's a night. But yeah, checklist is one jar. So. And if I can call a macro, a generic interface involves macros, etc. So it's been, yeah, so it works fine. Yeah. So that's for the command line. I can also show you how the SBT plugin works. So here, for that you have to, you can add this line in in this file, you know, where you add global plugins. And then I don't know if you have something, a twisted or evil project, which has lots of modules, which fetches lots of dependencies. I have a few here, but yeah, okay. So we have to get it.
You need snapshots for that. So
okay.
snapshots.
I already had it. Okay.
Can you make that faster too?
This one, I don't know. Okay, that's GitHub. Else I can show you CRC or HTTP4S, which have lots of modules. Okay, but here's done. I removed the target directories. What can you even do this? Okay. So this is a bit tricky because it's harder to interface with SBT. So there are still a few corner cases where the SBT plugin doesn't work, but from it works in almost all the time.
Can you say in which cases it doesn't work?
Yeah, when you have a module in your project that depends on a published version of another module in the same project. You know, because that confuses the inter-project resolution. You know, whether you have to fetch a module or whether you have to use recasting. And, mine is a bit naive compared to the default one of SBT. But yeah, and so there may be some SBT plugins which conflict with this one. I think the SBT Docker something just silence my plugin, so you end up with the default resolution if you have this one. That's the two cases I know. So here it was launched. So let's do an update. Just it should be fine. Okay.
Wow.
It
takes
did
what, 30 seconds to get there normally.
Yeah. There are things in cache, so but yeah, sorry. I could sandbox it.
What about update classifiers?
Yeah, I do it. Okay, I'm sandboxing and okay. Well, actually, with the SBT plugin, you know, there's a first initial resolution when we fetch the coursier plugin, which is done by the legacy resolution of SBT. Like, I can't remove this one. You know. Okay. I showed you earlier the progress bar that I have to commit. So this is the order display of things. So it fetched metadata. Looks like it can't fetch this thing. That's the demo effect. Probably, yeah, probably. So 1 minute, okay. Yeah, so I'll do that in the background. Now, if you have question or anything, yeah.
We've got time for one question.
All right, so you mentioned that there's an API so you can use it as a library, right?
Yeah.
And so I checked the documentation, and it seems that it heavily uses ScalaZ. So this means that we need to understand ScalaZ in order to use it, right?
No, not really. It uses ScalaSphere because it wants the core requires to be fed the metadata via a monad. It can be a monad, and another module uses task from ScalaSphere to do that. You have to really to understand a lot of ScalaSphere to do that. I think I'm thinking to switching to cats too, but it doesn't have a task for now. Here, what's true? Yeah, sorry. What's true here is if we look at the reservoirs, at the repositories, the first one is one from TypeSafe, and you know repo.typesafe.com. It's the I can show you the third one, and this one is particularly slow compared to Centaur.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's fetching us fast. Yeah. So
okay.
so
Thanks, Alex.